In this video, we are going to look at the video solution of the QT and the DI section of the CMAT 2026. So let's start with the first one. So if you look at, suppose the first question, it is basically based on a DI set, and we are going to have 3 questions on this particular set and a slightly on the easier side. Let's read the set first. The table given below represents the number of cars sold by 4 dealers P, Q, R and S in 6 months of a given year. Based on the given data, answer the question. So a very straightforward table. If I want to interpret the table over here, I can see the month mentioned are January, February, March, April, May, June, and the dealer names are P, Q, R, S. So if you look at over here, they have also given a, let's say, column for total, which simply means total number of cars sold by the 4 dealers, let's say P, Q, R, S, in the month of January happens to be equals to a 396. But they have not given to us what is the number of cars sold by dealer, let's say P, over the 6 month over here. Definitely we can find out the total by adding this 6 values over here. Now, this is a very straightforward DI set where nothing is deductible. So we will, let's say, look at, let's say, your questions. So these are the 3 questions. And if you see the 3 questions over here, you will also going to understand that the 2 questions are talking about dealer P. One of them, let's say, want to focus on dealer Q. At the same time, we are not really concerned about, let's say, the total sales, car sales by the dealer on all the 6 months. If I read, suppose the first one, the total number of cars sold by the dealer P during Feb to June, please note Feb to June and not January to June, is what percentage more than the total cars sold by all the dealers in the month of June. So this data, total cars sold by all dealers in the month of June, is already known to us, let's say, from the table. If you look at in the month of June, total basically is 396 over here. So we can find out total of, let's say, what is the number of cars sold by P from Feb to the month of June. So same way I can read the other questions as well, and they are very, very straightforward. Let's try to attack question by question. So if I look at, suppose, the first one, as I have read this particular question, and for the dealer P, I'm going to focus on Feb, March, April, May and June, all the 5 months except January. Let's try to add these numbers over here. So if I look at, suppose, first of all, 90 plus 80 will give you 170. 170 plus 100 will give you, one can say, a 270. 270 plus 90 will give you a 360. 360 plus 90 will give you a 450. So right now we have got the 450. And then let's try to add the last digit separately. So 4 plus 5, 9, 9 plus 8, 17, 17 plus 8, 25, 25 plus 5 will give you 30. So 450 plus 30 will give you a 480. So sum of this 5 number will give you a 480. And now my task is to know that this 480 is what percentage more than the total car sold by all the dealer in the month of June. So in the month of June, they have sold 396. So now the simplified question basically become 480 is what percentage more than the number 396. If I look at, suppose, the difference, 480 is how much more than 396, and the simple answer will come out to be, one can say, 84. So it now become 84 more compared to a quantity which is 396 times of 100. If I look at the number 84 and 396, clearly both those numbers are, one can say, multiple of 4. At the same time, the number 84 is a multiple of 3. 396 also happens to be a multiple of 3 because the summation of the digit is coming out to be a multiple of 3. Let's cancel by 12. So one can say 12 sevens are 84. 12 threes are is 36. Then again we are left with the number 36. So one can say 3 more times. But the question basically becomes, we are supposed to find out 7 upon 33 is what in terms of percentage. If I, let's say, talk about some basic numbers, 33 basically is, one can say, nothing but, you can say, 3 into 11. So if you talk about 1 by 11, so I can do a normal division also over here. This is going to be 700 divide by 33. So 2 times will give you a 66. then one can say 4 will be left over here, so 40, and then 33 will only go one more time. So definitely it has to be 21 point something. And if you look at the given choices, you will choose to mark option number 4 over here. If I show you some other alternative, let's say to evaluate the number 7 by 33, as I told you, knowing the reciprocal in terms of percentage is a very, very important skill set. So if I talk about 1 by 11 is a good number, which you can say is 9.09%. The number 7 by 11 will then be 63.63%. So how can I find out the number 7 by 33? So 7 by 33 basically will be 1/3 of this number. So if I divide the number 63.63 by 3, you will get 21.21%. So definitely, I will choose to mark option number 4 as the answer for this particular question. If you look at the next question, it says that what is the ratio of the total number of cars sold by dealer P in the month of February, April, and May? So please be very, very let's say clear over here. They have told February, April, May for dealer P. So numbers are 94, 108, and let's say 98. 2. The total number of cars sold by dealer S in the month of March, May, and June. So for dealer S, I'm going to focus on March, May, and June over here. Let's add the three numbers. So 94 plus 108 becomes a 202. 202 plus 98 will become equals to 300. How about dealer S in the 3 month mentioned to us? 89 plus 91, the sum becomes 180. 180 plus 90 will become a 270. So the sum becomes very, very straightforward. So if I look at total number of cars sold by dealer P in those mentioned 3 months is 300. Whereas for dealer S, the same number happens to be a 270. As you can clearly see, both the numbers are divisible by 10. We are supposed to find out the ratio. If I look at the number 30 and 27, each of them are divisible by the number 3. So 3 times 10, 3 times 9. So the required ratio over here must be a 10:9, and that simply means option number 3 must be the answer for this particular question. Then if I look at the next one, it says the total number of cars sold by dealer Q in the month of April, May, and June. Q, April, May, and June. These are the three numbers over here. And if you look at the total over here, 108 plus 102 will become a 210. 210 plus a 97 will become equals to a 307. And this is what percent of the total number of cars sold by all the dealers. Please note all the dealers P, Q, R, S in the month of February and April. So in the month of February, total cars sold by all of them is 400. In the month of April, the number also is 400. So total number of cars sold by all the dealer in those 2 months, Feb and April, become equals to 800. And what is my task now? The task is simply going to find out that 307 represent what percentage of the number 800. So it's going to be a 307 is what percentage of the number 800. If you look at the options are not a very, let's say 50%, one is between 40 and 50%, one is less than 40%. If I go with an approximation technique for the number 800, 50% corresponds to 400, 40% corresponds to a 320. So definitely if I see a quantity which is 307, which is less than 320, it has to be definitely less than 40%. So I can choose to mark option number 4 as the answer. Otherwise, I could have done a normal division. Definitely the 2 zeros can be easily cancelled out. I wish to divide the number 307 by 8. So 8 3s are 24. 6 remain. 8 8s is going to be a 64. 3 will remain. So it's going to be 38 3 by 8%. Hence, option number 4 is the answer for this particular question. If I look at the next sum basically happened to be in the chapter. One can say a percentage and you can say profit and loss over here. Let's look at the sum. even after reducing the mark price of an item by rupee 32, the shopkeeper makes a profit of 15%. If the cost price is rupee 320, what percentage of profit would he have made if he had sold the same item at the mark price? So please note, it's a very, very straightforward problem, but we will, let's say, look at from two, let's say, perspective. One, a normal conventional method, and then the shortcut basically over here. So what do we have? So we know that in case of profit and loss, we have a component called CP. We are going to have a SP, and we have something called as a mark price. So your CP is given to us as rupee 320. Now mark price we don't know, but what we know is that when the mark price was reduced by rupee 32, that means I must have given some discount and then I arrived at some selling price. And if I sell, so for example, if I call this as some number X, for example, and if I reduce the mark price by 32, in other words, you can say I am giving a discount of 32 on the mark price, then this is going to be your selling price. If I sell the item at this amount X minus 32, then the profit basically happens to be a 15% over here. So what we can do in simple word is that for the number 320, we have the SP which is going to be known to us. I can simply find out how much is going to be the selling price. So we can find out the profit must be 15% of the number 320. And let's try to evaluate this particular number. 15% basically would mean 15 upon 100 times of 320. 5 3s are 5 2s are 2 times 16, and this simply become equals to a 48. So a 48 rupees is the required, let's say, profit, and that means your selling price basically must be 48 more than 320, leading to a 368. So we got the SP to be 368, and that means this number is nothing but equals to 32 less than the mark price. So the mark price over here, which was taken as X by, let's say, me over here, should be 368 plus the number 32, leading to the number 400. And now the question says, what is going to be the profit percentage in case the item basically was sold at the mark price? So a CP of 320, a mark price one can say of 400. The required gain now is going to be equals to 80 now. And 80 over 320, this simply become 1/4. And you can say this will correspond to a 25% profit. So one can safely choose to mark option number 1 as the answer for this particular question. The next thing which you will possibly ask me is that, is there a need to find out this selling price or even, let's say, a mark price for that matter? And the answer from my side will be a clear cut no. Understand, even after giving a discount, you end up making a profit of 15%. You have a CP of rupee 320. So if I don't give a discount, one can say of, let's say, rupee 32, you are going to get further, let's say, profit. And understand, my profit basically will be enhanced by what percentage. So for that, I just need to know 32. This is a reduction which was done on the mark. If I don't do that, this 32 will give me extra profit, right? So I just need to ask myself, 32 represent what percentage of the cost price? And this, if you look at, is nothing but 1/10. Or you can say, if I want to talk in terms of percentage, will give you additional 10% profit. So it will be 15% plus the 10%, and this will lead to a simple 25%. If you see over here, it depends on how do you solve the problem. If I take this particular route, it's going to be a very, very straightforward. Even if I take the help of algebra, or let's say end up finding out the SP and then the MP and then the new profit percentage, in whatever case, the end outcome is going to be same for both of us. The next question again happens to be, one can say, on percentage and profit and loss concept. Let's read the straightforward problem. So they purchased a chair with three successive discount of 20%, 12.5% and 5%. The equivalent single discount is going to be how much? So in this particular case, understand it's a straightforward problem. In the exam of CMAT, we don't have the liberty to take the help of the on-screen calculator. But in case suppose this exam was turned up, let's say in an exam like CAT or ZAT, we can take the help of on-screen calculator and we can reduce our calculation. Even though it's not required, I'm just showing you what is going to be the approach in case the calculator was, let's say, given to you. So what I will do in this particular case, if I give a discount of, let's say, a 20%, then something become 80% of that value. So the multiplier, because of 20% reduction, 20% reduction is going to be a 0.8. Then what about the corresponding, let's say, multiplier because of a 12.5% decrease? It's going to be a 0.875. And then finally, if I look at another discount of, let's say, a 5%, this basically would mean something will then become 95% of that value. So this will lead to a multiplier of 0.95. So because we are doing a successive discount, in that particular case, you will do a 0.8 into a 0.875 into a 0.95. Whatever result will become, you will get nothing but the final value will be that percentage of the original. So whatever I get, I will subtract it from the number 1. And whatever outcome comes out, I am going to multiply it by 100. This could be the approach in case, let's say, Calc was given to you. But I will avoid this because in CMAT, this was not applicable. So what could be the other approach? So what I will do is, we will take the help of a very, very known formula, which is the successive percentage change. And what is known about that formula, that if I have a percent change and then a B percent change, the effective percentage change happens to be nothing but, one can say, A plus B plus a AB by 100. Please note, we do have a formula, let's say, for increment or whatever percentage change of A%, B% and C% as well. But people don't, let's say, tend to remember those tedious formula. This formula is very much applicable or, let's say, known to most of us. Now, you have to be very, very careful because we have to take the sign of A and B very, very carefully. In case, suppose it's a percentage increase, I will not going to change the sign over here, but in case this A represent a percentage reduction, I am going to put a negative over here. And one more very, very vital information regarding the successive discount, that it doesn't depend on the order. So what we can do in this particular context is, suppose if I look at a discount of 20% and 12.5%, so I will use, suppose, first of all, A as negative 20 and B as negative 12.5. So I will put that values of A and B over here, and that basically would mean a minus 20, minus 12.5 plus 20, minus 20, minus 12.5 upon 100. Minus minus basically is going to become a plus. This is going to become 5 times. This will become a 2.5. So it becomes minus 32.5 plus 2.5, and this will lead to a negative 30. And what does this basically mean? That if I reduce something by 20% and then further by 12.5%, that is an equivalent single discount of, one can say, a 30%. Now, after this particular part, you can see we are doing a further discount of 5%. So if I carefully look at the options all the time, I can say definitely option number 2 can be ruled out. I can also, let's say, ruled out one more options now, because understand one thing, if I give a discount of 10% and then again a 10%, the effective discount is going to be less than 20%, 10 plus 10. So in this particular context, if I give a discount of 30%, and 5%, together the discount has to be lower than 35%. So option number 4 also basically will be out at this particular moment. So I will again going to apply the same formula, A plus B plus EB by 100, with my new A as let's say minus 30 and the new B let's say as a minus 5. So let's again apply the formula and you get minus 30 minus 5 plus minus 30 into minus 5 divide by 100. You are going to get minus 35 plus a 1.5, and this will lead to a minus 33.5. So it's a effective discount, one can say, of 33.5%. So one will choose to mark option number 1 as the answer for this particular question. Let's look at one more method in case, let's say, someone want to start with the number 100. For example, if I assume the starting point was 100 and then I'm giving a discount of 20%. So if I reduce something by 20% from the number 100, that value will now going to become 80% of that value. So 80% of 100 is simply going to be equals to 80. A drop of minus 20 from the number 100. Then from the number 80, let's say we give a discount of 12.5%. So if I look at a discount of 12.5%. Now, what does 12.5% means to us? It's a very common number again. It represents 1/8. How much is 1/8 of the number 80? And the answer is going to be 10. So that means we are giving a discount of 10 in absolute sense from the number 80. We reach the number 70. And then on the number 70, we are going to give a discount of 5%. So a discount of 5%. Understand, for the number 70, 10% would mean 7, 5% would mean a 3.5. So if I give a discount of 3.5, this will fall down to the number 66.5. If you look at now effectively, something which was priced at rupee 100 all the way comes down to the number 66.5, and that simply means a effective discount of 33.5%. Hence, option number 1 is the answer for this question. If I look at the next sum, it says that 4 coins are tossed simultaneously. What is the probability that the 2 consecutive heads never occur together? Now, again, there are 2 ways to solve this particular question. We can, let's say, find out the total number of cases smartly without listing them down, and then we can find out the favorable cases. The other thing could be, in this particular context, because we have only 4 coins being tossed, total outcomes are only a 2 power 4, which is 16. We can list down the cases and we can just find out the favorable outcome. So I will do both the approaches. First one, the long method of listing down all the cases. Since we, let's say, are going to have total of, one can say, 16 outcome, one of the nice method basically would be to write down, let's say, first of all, half the number of, let's say, times h and half the number of times t. So I will write down, suppose, total of, one can say, 8 times h and then 8 times t. Then I will write the sequence of, let's say, 4 times h, 4 times t in that order. So then I will write 2 times h, 2 times t. And finally, 1 time h, 1 time t. So we have got our sample space, and that basically happened to be 16 possibility, as you can see over here. Now, among those, I want to remove those cases because they are saying we need to find out the probability that the two consecutive heads never occur together. So if I look at suppose the first one where I can see 4H, two consecutive heads are occurring together, so this case can be simply ruled out. So I will just going to look, if I look at the next one again, I can see 2H coming together. So this case also is ruled out. In the third one again, the 2H are coming together. This case is going to be ruled out. If I look at the fourth one again, the 2H are coming together. So they are also going to be ruled out. The next one again, the 2H are coming together, should also be ruled out. In this one, everything is perfectly fine, so I should count this particular case. HTTH again perfectly fine. HTTT is also perfectly fine. So we got three cases so far. Over here, this HHH won't work because two of them are coming together. Ruled out. THHT, the two H are coming together. Ruled out. THTH will work. The next one again will work. This won't work. Will work, and also going to work. So you can see here, if I look at the count, the favorable number of case, it came out to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Hence, the required, let's say, probability must be favorable case divide the total number of case, giving you a 1 by 2. So I will choose to mark option number 4 as the answer for this particular question. If I look at one more way over here, slightly better than the previous one without listing all the cases. So first of all, your total sample space came out to be, for every coin we have 2 outcome, number of points are 4, hence 2 raised to 4, which is 16 is total number of outcome without listing it down. Now look at what we want. We want two consecutive heads should never occur together. So there could be a possibility of outcome may contain 4 head, 3 head, 2 head, 1 head, or a possible 0 head. I don't want, let's say, 2 heads to come together. So over here, I will find the case of 0 head. Obviously, if I have 0 head, this condition will never violate because there won't be any head. So there's no question about two consecutive heads appearing together. So 0 head basically would mean only one case in all the 4 places turns out to be T. Then again, if I have also 1 head out of the 4, then also it will mean that there can't be a possibility of, let's say, 2 heads being together. So over here, the first coin could be head, or the second, or the third, or the fourth. So H, T, 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 or a T, H, T, 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 H, T, or it could be a T, 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 H over here. So understand, I could use binomial probability, and I can say out of 4 coins, one of them need to be, let's say, a head, and that I can choose in 4C one way, giving you 4 possibility. Then the case of 2 heads. In case of 2 heads, I can, let's say, go for a manual calculation. So if I look at the 4 places and I want there are only 2 heads, those 2 heads can be in the first and third. Understand, I don't want them to be together. So there should be a gap of minimum 1 between them. So it could be a H over here, 1, 3. Could be a 1, 4. Or if it is 2, then it has to be 2 and 4. So the 2 head coming in the first coin, third coin, first coin, fourth coin, second coin, and the fourth coin, like this. And that basically means you got another 3 cases. So if I look at total possibility so far came out to be a 8. Now the thing is, in case suppose I take 3 heads, and that basically mean you only have one tail being present, whether that tail is going to be over here, then I can say the last 2 slot will belong to head and they are going to be together. So there won't be any, let's say, possibility you can say for 3 heads. So we got total of 8 favorable case out of 16, leading to a 8 over 16 or a half, and I can choose to mark option number, let's say, 4 over here. Now please note, for the 2 head, I can give you one more method. So here you can look at, if I want 2 of the coin should show you a head, so the number of possibility ideally must be a 4C2. but you want to subtract the cases where two heads are together. The two heads will take the consecutive slot, let's say in three ways: 1 and 2, HH, second and third, or a possible third and fourth. So I will do 4C2 minus 3, again coming out to be a 6 minus 3, giving you a 3. So total favorable case still come out to be equals to 8 out of 16, leading to half as the required probability for the given question. The next sum happens to be a straightforward one, and the sum goes like this. A person buys two watches for a total sum of rupee 1000. He sells one watch at a loss of 5% and the other one at a gain of 20%, and on the total he gains rupee 50. The cost price of the two watches are how much? So again, in this particular context, I can, let's say, try to use the options also. I can look at multiple methods. I can use options. I can, let's say, try with options. I can use equations. I can use something else also. A smart way also will be taught to you. If I look at, suppose, the first condition, the person buys two watches for total sum of 1000. So in this particular context, the option says the CP of the two watches are. If I look at option number 1, 2, 3, 4, unfortunately, total of each of this number in option number 1, 2, 3, 4 coming out to be 1000. That means option number 1, 2, 3, 4 satisfies the first condition, that total value of the two watches basically adds up to the number 1000 over here. Now, if I look at, suppose, this second condition, he sells one watch at a loss of 5% and the other at a gain of 20%, leading to a gain, an eventual gain of, one can say, 50. The first method using options, suppose if I take this one to be true, so if I say he sells one watch at a loss of 5% and the other at a gain of 20%. So we don't know which one is going to be at 5 and which basically going to be at 20. So suppose if I take this one, it's a 5% over here and a 20% gain over here. Let's see what will this lead to. So if you look at over here, again, there's no particular order in this particular context. This is going to become a 35, a loss of 35, and this will give you a profit of 60. And if you see clearly, it's not going to come out to be a gain of, let's say, 50 over here for sure. What about if I try other way around? Definitely, if you look at, if I try other way around, 20% profit here and a 5% loss over here, this will give you 140 profit and this will give you 15 rupee loss. Clearly, my total gain will not going to come out to be as the number 50. So, clearly not going to be true. If I take the equal scenario, in this particular case, there will be a loss of 25 and a gain of, let's say, 100. This will lead to a gain of 75 and not a 50. So option number 1 out. Option number 2 also is out at the moment. Third one, if I look at, suppose, 20% profit here and a loss of 5%, this basically will lead to, one can say, a profit of 120. 10% would mean 60, 20% would mean a 120. And this basically would mean, one can say, a loss of 20, because 10% loss would mean a 40 loss. So 5% loss basically would mean half of that number, loss of 20. This time a gain of rupee 100. If I change this, minus 5%, 20%, this will give you a loss of 30. This will give you a gain of 80, and you can see the eventual gain happens to be 50. So I can choose to mark option number 3 over here. Now, what about the normal conventional method? So if I go with the normal conventional method, I am going to, let's say, assume two variables. Let's say price of one watch be X and the price of second watch to be Y. And my first equation simply become X plus Y to be equals to, let's say, 1000. He sells one of the watch. So again, you can take whatever, it doesn't really matter. So in this particular context, suppose if I say we are losing a 5% on this, and let's say we are gaining a 20% on this. So what is the loss? Let's say if I have 5% on this number, it is simply going to be a minus 5 by 100 into x. Here a gain of 20%, so 20 by 100 into y. And this will give you overall gain of rupee 50. So if I simplify this particular result, so let's say if I cancel this number by 5, this is going to be a 20. If I cancel by 5 again to keep 20 as a common denominator, this will become 4. So I get a minus x plus 4y to be equals to 50 into 20, giving you same number 1000. So minus x plus 4y is 1000. At the same time, you also have x plus y equals to 1000. Now, if you look at the coefficient of x is same, the signs are opposite. So if I try to add the two equations now, x can be eliminated and we are going to get 5y equals to 2000. So y become equals to 400. And if y is 400, the other basically has to be nothing but 600. So one can see the answer over here must be option number 3 over here. Let's see one more way to solve the problem with the help of the allocation technique. The shortcut to solve this would be, so what you notice here is that on one of the watch, the gain is 5%. On the second watch, the gain basically happens to be a 20%. Now, if I ask you a straightforward question, what do you think is the overall gain percentage? So one can say a gain of 50 on something which was costing rupee 1000, and that simply mean a 5% gain. So we got 15, we got 10. So if I look at the two, let's say watches must have a price in the ratio of 15 is to 10, or I can simply say 3 is to 2. But the total value of both of them put together happens to be rupee 1000. So if I split 1000 in two part in the ratio of 3 is to 2, to understand total will become 5. So 5 parts basically is equals to, one can say, 1000. So one part basically would be equals to a 200. So 3 part will correspond to 600 and 2 part will correspond to 400. So even without, let's say, equation, I would be able to solve this sum pretty easily. But again, people can take multiple paths. They could have used options here. They could have gone in the conventional method, or they could take the help of the, let's say, alligation technique to solve this. If I look at the next sum basically happened to be, one can say, on the concept of indices and surd. And this was, I would say, a slightly tricky question for, let's say, most of you, because you will slightly get motivated by looking at this kind of number. Now, how do we solve this kinds of problem? And we have a common kind of pattern. The one thing which you, let's say, look at, the two terms in the numerator inside the square root is root 5 plus 2 and root 5 minus 2. And what are these two numbers? And one can say they basically happen to be conjugate of each other. The good part will be if I tend to multiply this two quantity, it will become very, very nice. Because if I multiply them, root 5 plus 2 into root 5 minus 2, this will come out to be in the form of a plus b into a minus b, which is a square minus b square. And this will lead to a root 5 square minus 2 square, giving you a 5 minus 4, which is equals to a 1. So what I am saying is, if you multiply this two term, root 5 plus 2 and root 5 minus 2, it came out to be a decent, nice number to be equals to a 1. That is a very, very important part. So you again have a surd quantity coming out of denominator, which is root of 5 plus 1. So what's need to be done in this particular case? And the answer would be, let's think something about it. Let's take some quantity about the numerator. If I suppose take a quantity, let's say if I call x as root of root 5 plus 2 plus a root of root 5 minus 2. And what I will do now basically, suppose if I say, let's find out the square. As I told you, if I do a square, we are going to have something like a plus b whole square. So we will have a square term plus a b square term plus a 2 times of ab term as well. So if I do that over here, the term x square will simply become, if I do square of this particular term, this square basically will get vanish and 1 gets root 5 plus 2. If I do a square of this particular term, then you will get root 5 minus 2. And then I'm going to do 2 times AB, so plus 2 times of root 5 plus 2 into root 5 minus 2. And as we have seen that this particular term, when you multiply root 5 plus 2 times root 5 minus 2, the outcome simply become equals to a 1. We have shown you this particular part will become 1. This portion will become 1. Root of 1 is also going to be equals to a 1. So what do we have right now? We have x square as plus 2 minus 2 will vanish. You get 2 root 5. This part entirely become 2 into 1, which is equals to a 2. So x square is equals to this term, which is, one can say, 2 times of root 5 plus 1. And now notice that we have got the term root 5 plus 1, which is present in the denominator. So if x square is 2 times of root 5 plus 1, then I can say if I take the square root, so x would be equals to root 2 into root of root 5 plus 1. That means the simplified value of this numerator came out to be root 2 times of this term. So if I replace, suppose, the numerator by root 2 times of root 5 plus 1 whole divided by root of root 5 plus 1, this entire term basically will get cancelled out and we are going to find out a simplified answer which is equals to a root 2. If you look at the options, one will choose to mark option number 2 as the answer for this question. So overall, if you look at this, was not a very straightforward question. I am going to call this type of sum to be a straightforward type C. So if people don't know this is a striking point, you are going to face difficulty in solving this particular question. You should solve the other easier questions and maybe you want to leave this sum in the exam condition. If I look at the next sum on number system, it says that the digit in the unit place of the resulting number of the expression 234 raised to 100 plus 234 raised to, let's say, 101 will be how much? So again, it's a very straightforward problem. So in this particular context, we should know about the cyclicity and that too for the number 4 over here. Before that, if I want to know the unit place of the number 234 raised to 100, the outcome basically will depend on the unit digit of this number 4. 4 power 100 will have the same unit place as 234 power 100. Similarly, 234 power, let's say, 101 is going to have the same last digit as 4 raised to 101. Now we can look for the cyclicity pattern for the number 4. So again, we can look at two methods, especially for this example which is given to us. So for the number 4, what do we have as the pattern? So what do we see is 4 raised to 1 will give you 4. 4 square will give you a 6 in the end. 4 cube is 64, again gives you 4. 4 raised to 4 will again give you a 6 in the end. So what do we see? We can see a pattern repeating at a cycle of 2. So we can see 4, 6, 4, 6 and so on. And what do you notice now? That whenever you have 4 raised to odd power, the outcome basically is going to end with the number 4. And whenever we have 4 raised to an even power, the outcome basically will end with the number 6. So here 4 raised to 100, where this is a even number, power is an even number, will end with 6. And 101 being an odd number, so 4 raised to odd number will end with the number 4. And a 6 plus 4 basically is going to end with a 0 in the last place. Hence, for this particular question, the unit place or the last digit came out to be, let's say, 0. Hence, option number 4 is the answer for this particular question. Now, what about suppose the other method I'm talking about? So, if you look at, luckily in this particular context, the base have the same number and the second number have one more power. So, in this particular case, definitely if I add the two numbers, I can take something common. So, I can take 234 raised to the number 100 common. And this will lead to a 1 over here and a 234 in the second number. Now understand one thing, if I look at suppose this bracketed part, the number 1 plus 234 simply becomes a 235. And this is 234 raised to 100. Now understand the rule for 5. Whenever you multiply the number 5 by any odd quantity, the outcome basically will end with the number 5. Multiply the number 5 with an even quantity and the outcome basically will end with the number 0. So clearly this number is ending with a 5. The number 234 power 100 is simply going to be even. So even into a 5 will going to end with 0. Hence, option number 4 is the required answer for this simple question. If I look at the next one, it says that 4 different electronic devices make a beep after every 30 minutes, 1 hour, 1.5 hour and 1 hour 45 minutes respectively. All these devices beep together at 12 noon. They will again beep together at what time? So if you have seen, let's say, the concept of numbers, it's a very straightforward problem coming, let's say, on the concept of HCF and LCM over here. Especially in this particular case, the application is the LCM part. So what they are saying is that 4 devices, one basically beep after every 30 minutes. So what can you say over here? If when I say 30 minutes, it simply means at the end of 30, 60, after every interval of 30 minutes, the device basically will keep on beeping. So 30, 60, 90, 120 and so on. Suppose the first device. What about the second one? The second one basically after every 1 hour, or you can say in this particular case after every 60 minutes. So at the end of 60, 120, 180 and so on. So if you look at these numbers, this basically are a multiple of 30. These are multiple of 60. And if I talk about something which is presenting both the number, it has to be a multiple of 30 and also 60, which you can say is 60 right now. The third one, after one can say every 1.5 hours, or one can say after every 90 minutes. So one can say 90, 180, 270, 360 and so on like this. So far if I want to know at what interval, let's say device 1, 2 and 3 will beep together, and the answer basically would be a multiple of 30, 60 and 90, which one can say happens to be the number 180 over here, because 180 is going to be present in each of the number. And then finally, suppose if I look at the fourth device as well, which it says 1 hour 45 minutes, and that translates to one can say nothing but a 60 plus 45 giving you a 105 minute. So it's going to be a 105, 210, 315, 420 and so on like this. So understand what we are now looking for is in simple word the LCM of 30, 60, 90 and let's say 105. So if I look at the LCM of 30, 60, 90 and let's say a 105, and we have found out the LCM of 30, 60 and 90 was straightforward. It is 180 and this is a 105 over here. So what is the LCM of 180 and 105? And in this particular case, you will get it's come out to be a 1260. So 1260 is going to be a common number in this particular context. This many minutes, so if I divide this number by 60, one basically is going to find out 21 hours. And what does 21 hour basically would mean? If I start my counting from 12 noon, it must be, let's say, 3 hour less than the next day 12 noon, and that will translate to one can say 9 a.m. Hence, option number 4 is the required answer. Now, many of you, let's say, may find this sum to be slightly, let's say, difficult, saying that why had you taken them in minutes? And the answer is many of us basically are scared with the fractions. So people who are good with fraction, they can, let's say, keep them in terms of hours to make your life easier. So for example, here, as we understood, we have to find out the LCMs. So we will find out the LCM of the given quantities. So this time we will look at LCM of the number 30 minute translates to half an hour. The second one is 1 hour. The third number is 1.5 hours. If I convert that in, let's say, a improper fraction, that will come out to be a 3/2. And then if I look at the number 1 hour 45 minutes, so 45 minutes basically means 45 by 60 or 3/4 of an hour. 1 3/4 in mixed fraction when converted to improper fraction will give you a 7/4 of an hour. So we are supposed to find out the LCM of this fraction. And understand, to find out the LCM of fraction, the formula is it must be equal to LCM of the numerator divided by HCF of the denominator. This should be equals to the LCM of 1137 divided by HCF of 2124. As you can see, the LCM of 1, 1, 3 and 7 becomes 21. HCF of 2, 1, 2, 4 simply become equals to a 1. That's why we found out the LCM to be equals to a 21 hours. If you add 21 hours in the number 12 noon, 1 will arrive at 9 a.m. and that's why option number 4 is the answer for this question. The next sum also happened to be very straightforward question. And let's read the sum first. The sum of 3 consecutive odd number is always divisible by. Look at the keyword. The keyword is always divisible by. And the options are 2, 3, 5 and 6, very, very small numbers. Choose the correct answer from the option given below. And they are saying A and B only, B and D only, B only, A and C only. Now, what we should do in this type of problem, obviously we can, let's say, take the help of this approach. We can go in a normal conventional manner. For example, if I suppose talk about 3 consecutive odd number, they definitely have to be, one can say, in a AP. And please note, let's say an odd number, and if I want the next odd number, we need to add the number 2 in this. So for example, if I take the middle number, is suppose some number n, then the next number after that has to be 2 more than that. And the previous odd number to n must be 2 less than n, giving you n minus 2. Where this note n is an odd number. Likewise, please note, if I wanted 3 consecutive even number, I can take them in the form of n minus 2, n and n plus 2, and I could have taken n as an even number. But here, the sum of n minus 2, n and n plus 2, sum of 3 consecutive odd number, the required sum, if you add this 3 number, will come out to be equals to a 3n. And that clearly means one thing, it's going to be always a multiple of 3. Always a multiple of 3. If you look at, I can definitely say B is going to be always true. Will it be a multiple of 6? It's not going to be true because n is odd. 3 into odd number will never going to be a multiple of 6. So, won't be this, won't be this, won't be this. The answer definitely has to be option number B over here. That is, you can say, a normal conventional way to solve the problem. Now, what about suppose if I want to do it in a different manner? The thing is, if something has to be true for every case, I can take very simple example. The smallest possible thing I can think of is the number 135. These are 3 consecutive odd numbers, and the sum in this particular context will come out to be 9. Now, do you think over here that this number 9 is multiple of 2? No. Multiple of 3? Yes. Multiple of 5? No. Multiple of 6? No. So definitely B is perfectly fine. Again, note, it may happen that for some other value, it might not be a multiple of 3, but I don't have an option like none of the above. So I can just go and check for a few more numbers for my convenience. 3, 5, 7. This will give you a sum of 15. Again, divisible by 3. 5, 7, 9. The sum becomes a 21. Again, divisible by 3. So only B, and that means option number 3 is going to be the required answer for this particular question. The next sum basically happened to be on, one can say, sequence and series. And again, a slightly moderate kind of sum. I will not say a type A, but maybe a type B possibly for many of you. The value of the following sum of the term, and they have given you 5 upon 2 square into 3 square. Then 7 upon 3 square into 4 square. And then you have, let's say, 4 square into 5 square in denominator, and you have 9 over here. Now, there must be, in this type of sum, whenever you have something in the fraction, our task is to represent every term as a possible difference of, let's say, fraction. So maybe the number 5, I would say, somehow will be connected with the number 2 square and 3 square. 7 must be connected with the number 3 square and 4 square. Let's see the pattern possibly. The number 2 square is 4, 3 square is 9, and 9 and 4 differs by the number 5. Likewise, 3 square is 9, 4 square is 16. The difference between them happen to be a 7. So this 7 I can write as 4 square minus 3 square. Similarly, 5 square 25, 4 square 16, 25 minus 16 become equal to a 9. So you can see here that the number 5 is nothing but, one can say, difference between the number 3 square and 2 square. The number 7 happen to be the difference between the number 4 square and the number 3 square, and so on like this. And the last number, let's say 15, is the difference between the number 8 square and the number, let's say, 7 square over here. So I will write, suppose the first term, I will write the number 5 first of all as this 3 square minus 2 square upon 2 square into 3 square. The next term 7, which I told you is 4 square minus 3 square. So 4 square minus 3 square divide by 3 square into 4 square. Then in the same manner, the number 9 should be a 5 square minus 4 square upon 4 square into 5 square. And this thing will continue. In the end, we are going to get 8 square minus 7 square upon 7 square into 8 square. And now I wish to separate the terms. So understand, if I give you something in this form, understand this, A minus B upon A into B. This I can write as A by AB minus B by AB. In other words, this will simply become a 1 by B minus a 1 by A. So same way I want to use this particular thing in our given problem. So what I will do is, if I separate them, the first term can be written as 3 square upon this will give you 1 by 2 square minus 1 by 3 square. And then you will see a magic, because it's a sort of a telescopic series. If I look at the second term, it will be written as 1 by 3 square minus 1 by 4 square. The third term as 1 by 4 square minus 1 by 5 square. And this thing will continue. My last thing will be 1 by 7 square minus 1 by 8 square. And then suppose if you think of opening the bracket, suppose if I open this brackets over here, you will notice minus 1 by 3 square plus 1 by 3 square get vanish. Minus 1 by 4 square plus 1 upon 4 square also will get vanish. Likewise, you will get cancel minus 1 by 5 square. The term before this should be 1 by, let's say, 6 square minus 1 by 7 square. This part also basically get vanish. So finally, we are left with only two terms, which are, one can say, 1 by 2 square and minus 1 by 8 square. And this we can simplify. So 1 upon 2 square basically become 1 by 4 minus 1 upon 8 square basically become 1 by 64. Take the LCM, 64, 16 minus 1. So 15 over 64. Hence, one can say option number 2 is the required answer for this particular question. The next sum happens to be on time and work, and the sum goes like this. Raman can do a piece of work in 16 days. Satish can do the same work in 8 days. That means Satish is twice as efficient as Raman. While Ashok can do the same task in 32 days. That means Ashok is half as efficient as Raman. All of them worked together when they started. So all of them started the work together. But Satish left the work after 2 days. Satish has worked only for 2 days. Raman left 3 days before the completion of the work. How long will it take to complete the entire work over here? So a very, very straightforward sum on time and work, and we are going to go in a normal LCM method. If I look at suppose a 3-person name, and if I suppose write them in the, let's say, a proper order, where the least task taken is by Satish, which is 8 days, if I talk in terms of days first. Then we have the person Raman, who will take 16 days. And then we have the person Ashok taking 32 days. So here if you look at this 8, 16, 32, we'll have a LCM also of 32 because 32 is a multiple of 8 and also 16. So I will take total work to be 32 units. So what can I say about the rate of work done by each of them per day? Or I can use the term efficiency. So if I say in 8 days the person Satish does 32 units, so in 1 day he will do 4. So 4 per day, so I can say units per day. What about the person Raman? He will do 2 per day. And what about Ashok? He will do 1 per day. Let us understand what is happening over here. The person Satish has worked for 2 days only. So the amount of work done, so I will say total work done. Satish will do nothing but one can say work for 2 days, so 4 into 2. Then they have told Raman left the day 3 days before the completion of the work. So for example, if I say this guy has worked for X number of days, then Raman must have worked for X minus 3 number of days. But the person Ashok was there from the start till the very end. So the amount of work done by Raman must be 2 times of X minus 3. The amount of work done by Ashok must be equals to a 1 times of X. And the total work done by Satish, Raman and let's say Ashok put together must be equals to one can say 32. Then solve for this, you get 8 plus 2x minus 6 plus x equals to 32. This will become plus 2. So you get 3x plus 2 as 32. 3x equals to 30. X become equals to 10. So it took 10 days for the entire work to be over. Hence, I can choose to mark option number 3 as the answer for this particular question. If I look at the next sum, it says that you have the following figures 1, 2 and 3 and the statement A, B, C and D regarding them. And we have to choose the correct answer from the options below. So they've given 4 statements regarding the, let's say 3 figures. The first one is a rectangle of dimension 9 and let's say 4. The second one happens to be a square of dimension 6 centimeter. And the third one happens to be right angle triangle with the 2 perpendicular sides as 8 centimeter and 9 centimeter. And they've talked about something on the area, front, perimeter and so on. So let's find out the area and the perimeter for each of them. So for this particular figure, if I look at suppose the area is nothing but length into breadth 9 into 4 giving you a 36 square centimeter. For the second figure having a square, the area basically would be equals to side square. So 6 square again become 36 square centimeter. And for the third figure, right angle triangle, the required area is going to be half of base into height, giving you again a 36 square centimeter. So definitely area for each of them are going to be same. And if I suppose look at the, let's say, statement A, B, C, A, D, where A and B are regarding the area and C and D are about the perimeter, the area of the three figures are equal is mentioned in statement number B. So B definitely has to be true. And if I take the help of that, option number 1 basically will be ruled out. Then if you look at over here, C and D, so it can't be, for example, if B and C is true, then B and D also become true, because if perimeter of all three of them are same, then perimeter of, let's say, figure 1 and 2 are also going to be same for sure. So if C is true, then D also need to be true. So answer can't be, let's say, number 4. Answer can't be number 4, because if number 4 is true, in that case option number 2 also becomes true, because D is a subset of, let's say, statement number C over here. So what about the perimeter? If I talk about the perimeter over here, this is going to be equals to 26 centimeter. The perimeter here is equals to, one can say, a 24 centimeter. And in this particular case, definitely the perimeter, you will find this length. I bet this will come out to be not a nice number, root of 9 square plus 8 square. Clearly, the perimeter of figure number 1 and figure number 2 are not same. That means this is wrong. A already was wrong, and C also basically is going to become wrong over here. So what does that mean in this particular context? One can say only statement number B is correct. Hence, I will choose to mark option number 3 over here. Yes, one more thing regarding this particular problem. Many of you might argue that, sir, how can you be sure about this figure being a rectangle and this basically being a square? The figure look like a rectangle and a square, and please note, we don't have an option like none of them basically is being true. That means we can safely try to assume them to be rectangle and a square over here, even though they have not mentioned the, let's say, angles to be a 90-degree over here. If I look at the next one, again, this type of sums I would say are highly conceptual problem. And the question says they have given following statement regarding numbers. And the first one says there exists a smallest natural number. So what do we know about natural number? The smallest number happens to be 1, then 2, then 3, 4, 5, and this thing goes on and on, let's say up to infinity. So they are saying there exists a smallest natural number, definitely a true statement, because 1 is a smallest natural number. So number A is perfectly fine, and that means if I look at the options, option 3 and option number 2 can be out at this moment. If I want to do a smart work, I can see A only and A and C only. I may want to verify number C alone. But let's look at the number B. There exists a largest natural number, that is infinite. So this is false. Next one, every rational number is also a real number. To understand, a real number can be broken into rational number and irrational number. So definitely all rational numbers are going to be real number. So this is going to be always a true statement. So A is true, C is true. And what they are saying is between two consecutive natural number, there's always a natural number. So I'll take an example. If I talk about the number 2 and 3, between 2 and 3, do we have a natural number? And the straightforward answer is a no. So this is a false statement. Hence, only your A and C are right. I will choose to mark option number 4 over. The next sum happens to be slightly tricky, and again, many of you may find this to be slightly on the difficult side. So what they've given is, they've given if A plus 1 upon B plus 1 upon C minus 9 is equals to a 29 over 5, then find the value of A plus B plus C over here. And the options basically are all, let's say, proper positive integer. So one, let's say, by default assumption over here would be that the value of A, B and C should be a positive integer. Please note, they should have mentioned that particular part explicitly. Otherwise, we may get multiple, let's say, possible values of A, B, C, where they could be negative as well. Some of them could be negative as well. So here what I will do is, first of all, I will write this number 29 over 5 from, let's say, improper fraction in the form of mixed fraction. So 29 over 5, if I divide this by 5, I get 5 as the quotient and 4 as your remainder. So this will be equals to 5 plus 4 by 5 to begin with. So we have got a proper number and then a fraction part. Now, since you want 1 in the numerator for the fraction, so I will write this as 5 plus, if I divide by 4, this will become 1. If I divide this by 4, it will become 5 by 4. Now, if you look at this term, 5 by 4, I will again convert this in the form of mixed fraction. So, 5 by 4 basically would mean 1 plus 1 by 4. And then this particular, let's say, term happens to be in the form which I need. If I look at, this is a 1 here, this is also 1 here, and we have got the required format. So now we can make a comparison. And if I do a comparison over here from this part and the left hand side clearly, I can say A must be equals to 5. If I compare this to B must be equals to a 1. And then you can say this part over here, P minus 9 should be equals to a 4. If C minus 9 is equals to 4, then C must be equals to a 30. You can see we got A as 5, B as 1 and C as 13. So the required sum A plus B plus C will become equal to a 19. So one can choose to mark option number 3 as the answer for this question. In the next sum, it is given that in the triangles ABC and ADC in the figure, they have given angle BAC is 90, angle ADC is also 90. Also, DC is equals to 2 and the length of AC is equals to 4 units. Objective is to find out the length of BC over here. Now, how do you find out the length of BC? Definitely in this particular context, I can look at, let's say, triangles and I can look for certain angles. So, definitely I can see two angles are 90 degree each. Now, if I see, suppose a triangle mentioned ADC, because DC and AC are part of a triangle ADC, which has an angle C. And angle C is also a part of the bigger triangle, one can say ABC, where C is the common angle and this angle is 90 degree. So I will think about the concept of similarity, and with the help of the angle test, I can say the triangle CAB is similar to triangle, the smaller triangle CDA. These two triangles are similar with the help of angle test, because the angle C is common to both of them, and in triangle CAB, this angle A is 90 degree and angle, let's say, ADC is also equals to a 90 degree. And what do we know? In case two triangles are, let's say, similar, then their sides are going to be in the same ratio. So over here I can say the ratio of CA by CD is equals to CB by CA, and will also going to be equals to AB by DA. Let's put whatever is known to us. So CA is known to us as 4. CD is known to us as the number 2. CB is what I am, let's say, supposed to calculate first of all. And CA is equals to a 4 over here. So clearly, if you look at, if I solve for this, this is going to become a 2. This will imply the length of CB or BC would be equals to 2 times of 4, giving me the number 8. Hence, 8 must be the answer. So option number 1 is the required answer. In this case, if I look at one of the shortcut over here, if I look at, suppose, the small right angle triangle over here, in this, which contains the angle C, the hypotenuse of the small right angle triangle is twice the base over here, the base resting on the, let's say, angle C. Likewise, in the bigger triangle which are similar over here, if my base which is adjacent to angle C is 4, then the corresponding hypotenuse must be 2 times of 4 giving you 8, and that's where you can choose to mark option number 1 over here. The next sum happens to be the concept of mixtures and alligation. The sum goes like this. 85 liters of a mixture containing milk and water are in the ratio of 27:7. How much more water is required to be added in the mixture so that the resulting mixture contains milk and water in the ratio of, one can say, a 3:1. Again, this type of sum can be solved in multiple manners. So what do you think, is the key part over here? The key part basically is if you are going to add some water, what will not change is the quantity of milk. So definitely I will look at that approach and I will say, initially, if I look at the ratio of milk and water, which was 27:7, the total quantity is going to become, one can say, 34. 27 plus 7 becomes 34. So out of this 85, someone asks you how much is the proportion or how much is the amount of milk. So one can say 27 by 34 into 85. Let's solve for this. 17 5s are, 17 2s are. This part become 135 divided by 2, and 135 divided by 2 will give you a 67.5. And that would mean remaining part must be water, and that you can say must be equals to 17.5. So we have found out that initially the quantity of milk was 67.5 and water part basically was 17.5. Now, what they are saying is that you are adding some water now. So nothing was added in the milk part. You added some quantity of water. And because of which the new ratio of milk and water becomes 3:1. 3:1. Now understand the milk has not changed. So understand the quantity of milk will remain 7.5. So if I say this is 57.5, then this part definitely has to be 1/3 of this number, giving you a 22.5. So understand, from 17.5 to 22.5, you must have added 5 liters of water. And hence, I can say option number 4 must be the answer for this particular question. Let us look at another method to solve this particular question with the help of, one can say, you can use equations as well, but I will take the help of, one can say, alligation. So what we can say, initially we have milk and water in the ratio of 27:7. Then we are adding a pure water, you can say. And finally, we have a mixture where the ratio of milk and water basically become 3:1. So initially, if you look at, if I ask you what is the proportion of water, then one can say it is 7 out of 34. What about the water which we are adding? Over there, the entire portion is water. So there's no milk, entire thing is water. So it's 100% water over there. And if you combine them, you want 3 parts milk, 1 part water. That means 1/4 of the solution basically is your water. I will use alligation in this number, 7 by 34, 1 and let's say 1 by 4. So 34 and let's say 4 has a LCM of, one can say, a 68. If I multiply by 68 throughout to make my numbers easier, the first part basically will become 14. This part will remain 68. This part will become 17. This is 3. And this basically will become 51. And this ratio become, one can say, 17:1. What does that mean? If my initial mixture was of 17 liter, I should have put 1 liters of water in it. But what we know is that initial we had 85 liters. If this is into 5, then this number also need to be multiplied by 5. So 5 liters of water must be added, and hence option number 4 is the required answer for this question. The next sum happens to be a very straightforward one on the mensuration part, and the sum goes like this. If the height and the radius of a right circular cylinder are equal, What does that mean? They are saying R is equals to H. And the volume is given to you as 176 by 7 centimeter cube. Then the objective is to find diameter and not the radius of the cylinder. So we know the volume formula. So the volume of cylinder is equals to pi r square h, where we know h is equals to r. Let's put the value. Pi is 22 by 7. R square into r will become r cube. 176 over 7. 7 get cancelled out. 22 into 8 is 176. So you are going to find out r cube equals to 8, and then you can say r to be equals to 2. So please don't be in a hurry to choose to mark 2 as the answer, because they have not asked for the radius. I repeat again. I repeat, the objective is to find diameter, which is twice the radius. So diameter must be equals to 4 centimeter. Hence, option number 1 is the required answer for this simple mensuration question. Let's read the next sum first. And the sum goes like this. In Kendriya Vidyalaya, Ujjain, 20% of the students are athletes. In Navodaya Vidyalaya, Ujjain, 25% of the students are athletes. Then they are saying if Navodaya Vidyalaya has 60% more students than Kendriya Vidyalaya, then the number of athletes in Navodaya Vidyalaya is what percentage of the athlete of Kendriya Vidyalaya? So again, if you look at one of the very important part of this particular question, nowhere they have given the absolute numbers. The number of, let's say, people or the student in Kendriya Vidyalaya, Navodaya Vidyalaya, or the number of athletes. The thing is, it doesn't really matter. So what I will do is I'm going to focus on this sentence. The number of students in Navodaya Vidyalaya is 60% more than that of Kendriya Vidyalaya. I will take the help of that, and maybe I will do one thing. If I write here KV, and I will write down here NB, Navodaya Vidyalaya. And as per this particular sentence, if I assume the number of students in Kendriya Vidyalaya to be 100, then the number of students in Navodaya Vidyalaya must be 60% more than this number, leading to, one can say, a 160, straightforward number. Now for each of them, they have told you what percentage of the student are athlete. So as per the first line, in Kendriya Vidyalaya, 20% of them are athletes. So among this 100, the number of athletes basically are 20%. So 20% of the number 100 will give you 20. And for Navodaya Vidyalaya, that number basically happened to be 25%. So one can say for the number 160, 25% of them are athletes. I will write here A. And this 25% of the number 160 basically means 1/4 of 160, giving you 40. So we found out if I assume number of students in the Kendriya Vidyalaya to be 100, then corresponding athlete in KV came out to be 20 and NV came out to be a 40 here. Now reading the sum is very, very important. The number of athlete in Navodaya Vidyalaya is what percentage of the athlete in Kendriya Vidyalaya, not the word more or less. So I want to know 40 is what percentage of 20? 40 is what percentage of 20? And since it is double, it simply means the number has to be 200%. So 200%, and that basically means option number 3 is the answer. Please don't make a casual mistake of marking option number 2. If the question was number of athlete in Navodaya Vidyalaya is what percentage more than the number of athlete of KV, then the answer becomes 100%. But for the given question, I just need to answer that 40 is what percentage of 20. Since it is double, the required answer has to be 200%. It is option number 3 over here.